started. So this is going to be a series of 6 different time periods. Some of them are going to take the whole hour. Some of them are going to take 35 to 45 minutes. So, because each one you can go into detail so much different. And quite honestly, some of it is going to be the interaction from the people that are here, right? Because a lot of it, especially this first one, is question and answer of yourself, like self-mastery of what do you believe it is, what's important about it. So it's more of an interactive portion, whereas the 80-20 can be a different, more teaching systems and whatnot. So I'm going to ask right away, why are you here? Like, what do you want to learn from this particular training or this 6-session training?
How do I make myself commit?
How do I make myself commit to self-mastery? Okay, that's an honest one. What else? This is not a systems and strategic, like, how do I get leads kind of class, right? This is more of an, Pete's like, I'm done, I'm leaving. This is more of how do you utilize these different tactics to become better personally and professionally, right? So I'm using the normal guide. And the first question they ask is, what differentiates those that achieve at the highest level and those who don't seem to accomplish much?
I was just actually listening to something by Gary Keller.
You might have to talk louder.
I was just listening to something from Gary Keller when he was putting together like the MREA. And he was saying the one thing he sees that everyone that achieves at a higher level, they follow some sort of system or model. Like he just sees that across the board with high achievers. They have something in place that helps them be successful.
And that's just business wise or professionally as well?
I'm not sure, he didn't say.
Okay, yeah. That's fair. What else?
Just say they just seem to do things differently generally, right? Yep. Just probably following the systems, but yeah, and a lot of times it's also just competitive.
That's a good one.
So
usually is following
a discipline, right? If you were to think of someone that that's really successful, and doesn't have to be in real estate, it can just be in general, or what you see as someone that's achieved a lot, what's the picture that you have in your mind?
Happiness.
Happiness. Okay.
They look healthy.
The way that they look, right? Like they just
their energy, the way they show up, the way they interact.
There's a different energy that someone that is a high achiever puts out, right? Sure. And not to say that's every single day, because I think human beings, as we all know, we go through ups and downs, no matter if you're achieving or not, right? That's just human nature. But there's a different energy of someone that has achieved a lot and the positivity that comes and kind of vibrates off of them, for sure. What else?
I would say like togetherness.
Okay.
You will, like truly highly successful people, like we all know people, right, that maybe do something well, whether it be make money or sell houses or something, right? But like the chaos, right? And eventually those people don't last, frankly, right?
The chaos turns to burnout, right? Like if it's like the people that are put together, it's like they have a discipline, they're regimented, and then they know what is their strengths and weaknesses and what kind of their max is.
Right. Actually successful, like over time, right? Yeah, on the surface they look pretty calm and have things together because they're following the disciplines. Obviously, it seems they're not, don't have some chaos, but
well, and I think
you can just tell they're just together. There's an air about it.
Maybe how they even handle the chaos, right? I think that there'll always be chaos in anyone's life, achieving or not achieving, but I think that there's a difference in the emotional capacity and maturity of someone on how they deal with the chaos, right? Someone that is achieved a lot is able to have the fierce conversations to kind of minimize that a little bit.
Alexandra on Zoom says they have passion and surround themselves with other higher achieving individuals.
I love that. I love that you mentioned surrounding themselves by other high achievers. I think the biggest thing is when you go into a room, like like a gala of some sort, and you just see a group of people. You can sometimes pick out, right, who are the like high achievers in that room and the people that you want to be around versus like the normal people. Not saying you don't want to be around them, but you can tell the difference in that, can you not? The conversations are different. The topics of the conversations are different. And again, we go back to the energy of it. So who you surround yourself is absolutely important in all of it. Anything else on this one?
Feel like you will, elevate to like the top 5 people that you're most commonly around.
Well, here's a funny thing. Anyone
Or not.
that's a sports fan, right? Like to that point, right? When you play a team and you're the team that wins, you know, you're undefeated, and you play a team that is mediocre. Have we ever seen that undefeated team get beat by that team that nowhere near has the skill set? Have you ever seen that happen?
No.
It happens a lot, right? So when you put yourself in a room with people that are achieving really high, you automatically want to achieve high with them or keep going and keep reaching it. I always say be the lowest achiever in any group. For real, like, because it's gonna push you to be the highest one. Because how uncomfortable is it if you're sitting in a room and they're like, hey, tell me your net worth. And you're like, I don't want to. You got 2 choices. You get out of that room or you admit where it is now and you improve it, right? All right. So defining the 6 personal perspectives. I mean, we kind of touched on this, right? We touched on mindset, we touched on attitude, and we touched on approach on life. I think about this, I'll take this personally. Yesterday, I was kind of sharing with Heather, and I shared with Danielle, who I was coaching this morning, is I think we all go through different seasons and phases of life, right? The strongest people have seasons where they're not always the strongest. Last night, I was sitting there taking my kids or picking them up from carpool, and then my other daughter said goodbye to her really good friend who's a foreign exchange student from Germany, right? And I sat there and I thought about like approach to life. We can approach things very differently, right? She may not have ever even talked to this young girl, right? Because she had an accent, she couldn't really understand her, but what they did have in common was tennis. And they also had in common that they were both incredibly tall, right? So they were both like 5'10" to 6'1". And I have no idea what that feels like, but I do know what it feels like to be short. So they connected on that, right? And I was watching this last night and I'm thinking, you know, Paige, my middle daughter, has an approach on life that is very different than my other kids. And hers is this open heart, kind of talks to everyone, befriends everyone. And what she said to me yesterday, and it just kind of plays into this, is I said, you know, how did you become friends with Amelia? She's a year older, besides tennis, like, how'd you become friends? And she said, you know, Mom, she's like, I had to like sit there and think and put myself in her situation. How would I feel going to a whole nother country, not knowing anybody, and nobody really talks to me? And I was like, man, she's 15 years old. That's the least of most 15-year-olds' worries, what someone else is thinking, right? And I was like, I probably wouldn't have thought that in that moment, if I want to be completely honest. I would have went about my day and there's a million high schoolers and whatever. But it truly defines you on how you are in your life, on how you actually approach it and how you see other people, right? So, I mean, that was a lesson for me from a 15-year-old kid who doesn't listen to me worth a darn, but she taught me a lesson, right? So I think part of these are reflecting on how do we approach life? Do you feel like you're approaching it positively every day? Do you feel like you're approaching it with opportunity every day? Like if we are honest, do we do that every single day? Do we wake up? Are we grateful? I'd say maybe. Right? For most of us, maybe. Or when we're really conscious of it, that changes, right? We're like, oh, I should be grateful today. Or something happens and then all of a sudden you're grateful. So approach on life is incredibly important. Mindset. If there's one thing that I find in common with all of the high achievers in this industry in general, is their mindset. It is opportunistic at all times. It's full of abundance, right? The moment you shift your mindset to negativity and end all be all, your achievement level is going to go down by at least 50%, right? Because now all of a sudden you're fighting yourself. You're not just fighting the market. You're not just fighting lead generation. You're fighting yourself at that point in time, right? I've shared with a few people, the Mountain is You book is an incredible book. Our ALC is actually reading it. And people will read it and be like, yeah, it's like everything else, right? You're right. It is like everything else. But guess what? Everything else you obviously have not dug into yet. Because I would say most of us don't have a positive mindset and the confidence and potential of confidence that we can have. And that's all inner work, right? So that's the mindset piece. And if you're not working on the inner self and your mindset, the achievement it hits a ceiling every single time. And it might go up, right? The ceiling might go up, and then you're gonna have to do some more inner work. And then it goes up again. Attitude. What's everybody's attitude right now about real estate in this year? Because I watch social media and attitudes right now are not great in general, right? Anyone else watch social media and you feel like, oh, everyone's super positive right now?
Oh, real estate.
Anything. Like most people are not positive right now as I'm watching different things happening, right? Whether or not it's politically, whether or not it's market wise, whether or not it's like I am potentially failing at my New Year's resolution 3 weeks in, right? But we have a choice on that. Your attitude is absolutely a choice, right? And we can subscribe to other people's attitudes. Like honestly, 2 days ago, I was like, I think I might get off social media. Obviously, that's hard in this industry to just shut that off, right? But the attitudes and the kind of attitudes you bring in and you read about and then you feel it. Do you ever just like feel that internally when you read something?
Yeah.
And most of the time we don't even know the facts about it, but then all of a sudden you're like, well, now I'm pissed. Right? Or maybe it's just me. But like you read and then you see things multiple different times, right? And part of that is, I guarantee most of us don't do anything with that except for harbor it. Right? So we take on that attitude and then we don't make any change towards it. Or am I alone on that? I mean, I've been actually checking my algorithm just to see if I can have more puppies on there because that makes my attitude a lot better, right? And there's other things that can make you, switch that, but just be really, really conscious of what we're letting into our brain, and how that affects us, right?
Yeah, that's good. But one thing that was interesting for me on the drive to school with my kids is global warming. Like, what's your attitude towards something that you have no control of? Right? Like, what can she do? And like, it's my 8th grader that's like, well, it doesn't matter what I do. Like, is this going to happen in my lifetime? And how's it going to look? Are there going to be weather extremes? Like, to help her with her.
That's a hot topic, I feel like, for a lot of kids.
Out of her control. Like, how does she find peace and like?
Well, I think
that one was tricky because I'm good with attitude. I'm good with all the things, but that one's like, wow.
I would challenge you on what are the other things that you don't have control over that you come to peace with? Like, because there's things in our life that we don't have control over, right? Other people's reactions we have no control over. We never will, right? But we allow ourselves to have peace at that, and then we equip ourselves with how to react to that. So things like global warming, right? I don't know all the details to be able to just be at peace or things that you can do individually to make that better. But that's what you would teach your child, right? Is like, hey, these things you can do. Even though it might not make a large impact, each time you teach one person, it's a micro impact, right? And it allows that person to live with a different attitude and different peace of mind. And then hopefully one day that child can teach another person that she comes in contact with, right? And it's like, hey, this is how I deal with this, and this is the things that I do to make a micro impact. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of things in this world that we're never going to have control over. And that's totally fair. And my kids bring that up all the time. Often, actually. Any thoughts on these three? If you were to rank yourself out of 10, you can write it down. I would like at least 1 to 2 people to share. Where would you rank yourself in each of those 3 categories? 10 being like, I nail this every single day of my life. 1 being like, ooh, this is a not so awesome thing that I do every single day. And guess what? The way you rank yourself today is probably going to be different than where you might rank yourself in 2 months. Or it might be different than when you rank yourself around the holidays. And you know what I mean? So today, if you were to rank yourself on these out of 10, where would you be? I'll start. Mindset, I would say today I am probably a 7.5. Approach on life, I am probably a 6.5 today. And attitude, I would probably be a 7. I'm like a C student today.
I think when you talk about attitude too, that's interesting, when you bring up social media, because if we're feeling that and we're reading that, then when you pick up that phone call to the phone to like make those calls, and that's kind of what you're expecting because of your mindset and your attitude to receive on the other
You're
end.
programming yourself.
You are, when you're like, and I think about it a lot around the commission thing when that came out, because we were so into it, but people weren't even, so like we were almost programming other people to pay attention to it because it was us. It wasn't really, you know, them.
That conversation doesn't even come up anymore. Because the way that people are approaching it in their listing and their buyer's appointments are how they should have been approaching it for the last 20 years, right? So that conversation isn't happening. You're right. It's like the programming, and then we've programmed ourselves, and now we think someone else is going to react that way as well. And we're almost like ready to like combat it. And have you ever felt that from someone where you're like, oh, I just said something and they're ready to just, oh, okay. Anything online? Okay, so the 6 that we're gonna go through, have you guys seen these before? Some of you have seen them. So step number 1, commit to self-mastery. That's what we're gonna go over today. Number 2 is commit to the 80-20 principle. That will be next month. So it's gonna be once a month that we go through these. And then, you know, what you're gonna see is you're gonna see some overlap through all of them, right? So moving from E to P is step 3. And then step 4 is becoming learning based. And sometimes you can take the becoming learning based and almost put it with self-mastery, right? Because they truly do go together. Because part of self-mastery is just learning more about yourself, always on that journey too. And then step 5 is removing your limiting beliefs. And step 6 is the one that everyone decides to flake out on, is being accountable, right? It's really tough, right? It's really tough to be accountable. And a lot of people are like, hey, I'm a really accountable person. And there are a lot of really accountable people, right? What I would ask of anyone that says that, are you where you want to be? And a lot of times it's no, right? And then you dig in and you're like, tell me more about that. And when you dig in, it's usually either the lack of consistency or the lack of accountability to the plan that they've had in place or the actual goal that they've set. Talking to someone the other day, we were talking about Legion, right? That's a hot topic. When you say the word Legion, people usually like, oh, some people love it, and that's like the 2% of the population. And then like the other 98% is like, I know I need to do it. Right? Being accountable to that's tough, right? Like I was sharing this and I was like, I really keep saying I want to have abs, right? Like that's like a dream of mine. I bought an entire family share bag of Skittles this past weekend with the kids, right? I'm a pretty accountable person, but guess what? That Skittles bag is gone. Legit gone. And granted, there's 6 of us in the house, but that did not get me any closer to that goal, right? Because I made a decision and I was like, you know what, that red one, and now it says lime something or other. I was like, I am in. I was fully committed to eating that Skittle, and I was not committed to the ab workout. But that's real, right? Like we always say, oh, I didn't meet the goal. And that might sound stupid, right? Like, okay, really that was, no, but that's real. Because the more you make those decisions on whatever your goal is, the further away you are from it. Questions around this piece of it? Oh, these were all the things. Fun things. I didn't know these were fun pop-ups. I mean, it kind of all goes to what we just said, right? Like when you're in on something, you're in on it. When you want to master something, how many of us can actually say as we go into this self-mastery, what have you mastered in your life? What's one thing you've mastered in your life?
Just before, like this morning, and we were doing self-mastery, and I was like, I got nothing. I don't know. I really dabble in a lot. So I was like, that's interesting. So that's what, when you're like, what do you want to get? I'm like, well, how do you make yourself commit to that? And then like, I don't even know what's the thing you want to be like super mastered at, but, like, but you watch, like, I watch baking shows. It's like, man, they are in their craft. Or you think of, when you watch something like that, you're like, man, they really have nailed that craft. That is amazing,
What, so are you part of that, right? Is a lot of people dabble in a lot of things, right? Is part of it like you've dabbled and you haven't been able to master those things, or part of it is a decision that you haven't just like full on mastered one thing? Maybe both?
Or the decision. I mean, I maybe haven't found that one thing where it's like, yeah, it's gonna be my thing.
I mean, I know some things that you're really good at, so I'm like, just to be fair.
But what is mastery? Because I feel like you can always go beyond. Like I'm a solid floral artist and I can create pretty much anything with flowers, but there's always room for growth and
I think that's a great question.
everything. Like as a mom, as a teacher, as anything. Like what is mastery? Is that like the top, the cap, and there's no more growth?
What do you think mastery is? I mean, that's part of it. I think that this is an objective, you know what I mean? Like, what is that? Like, in my opinion, do I feel comfortable teaching something?
If you can teach it, you're a master of that.
If you can teach it and teach it well and resonate by creating more people underneath that to do this, you know what I mean? Like that's my opinion of it. But I'd be curious on what other people's opinion of mastery would be.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to look at it here too. It's commit to self-mastery. It's not achieve self-mastery. So I think truly, I mean, it's up to you, right? But
Yes.
my belief is, yeah, there isn't really any mastery, because if you're learning based, like there's always something you can do better. There's always a way to improve what you do and do something just a little bit better. So it's more about the journey than the destination. And these 6 personal perspectives, you're just committing to continuously be on that journey and never quit that journey. You're not necessarily saying I'm going to achieve mastery in something. And like you said, or yeah, there's plenty of things, like there's always something better. I mean, right? Like, I don't know. guess statistically speaking in golf, I'm like honestly in like the top 1% of golfers in the world or something like that. And the people I play golf with on a regular basis, like I can't even touch what they do.
Yeah, yeah. I think this conversation is what is important about this, right? Is you could probably, everyone can improve on something all the time, right? You don't even see the best of the best in the world. You have Olympians that aren't like, you know what? I'm the best. They actually are the best in the world, and they're still trying to achieve something more. They're trying to take off the lightest of, time on whatever run they're doing. They're trying to, you know what I mean? There's always,
Question, does
Yeah.
that make them a master? Like, let's say I'm really good at yoga, but I don't know how to teach it to you, but you could all learn from me by watching me. Does that make me a master and teacher? Something I can get.
maybe you don't want to teach it, right? And maybe that's just my perspective on something, right? Like I want to
Top
get better.
Olympian is such a good swimmer, but they can't teach me how to swim, but they're still a master. You know what I
Okay,
mean? Like, I
yeah.
like the idea of a master being a teacher to share
Yeah.
that skill. Like, that makes sense for that word, but like, can someone learn from your mastery by watching you, or do you have to be able to teach them and guide
I
them?
think even watching someone is teaching, right? I mean, this makes me think of Jacob Milton. He's not on here, right? But if you were to talk lead gen, he's in here every single day, right? And you watch that and you're like, okay, and I see the result. He's making these calls from this time to this time, and his results over here, and you're like, I can just learn by that behavior. Right? Like that's a journey to self-mastery of like, I can just learn from that piece of it. I went to the gym before and watched this person is in there every single day from this time to this time, and they're doing this work, right? I can learn from that, even just watching it and being like, man, this person's disciplined to this for whatever reason. I don't even have to talk to them, right? Like that it's the journey, it's a piece of that, right? Anyone else?
For me in soccer, like I've been coaching 10, 15 years, but this year I felt a pivot when new coaches started coming to me to ask questions, and I felt like, okay, I finally have mastered this. And I'm like break through that threshold of like I am almost commanding a room or the field with how I coach now, that like mastery confidence from the years past where I was always trying to work and ask more questions. I still ask questions, but it's more people are coming to me for questions rather than the first.
And it happened over time,
Yeah.
right? Because you showed your knowledge level and they just started respecting that piece of it. Love that. Anything else? We're gonna dive more into this, so it's gonna be fun. All right, so in regards to, this piece of it, it says, what 3 things would you like to accomplish in your life? This is a big question, like a really big question. And I'm gonna give you 2-3 minutes on it. Because I think most of us can come up with some answers very quickly. Right? You don't have to dive into detail on it, but I think some of us can come up with some quick, and the others, let's give some time to think about it.
well, other people already, can I share that, my husband's cousin is running the Arrowhead Trail Race right now. Well, he actually just finished this morning. But it goes along with like commit to mastery, right? Like this isn't his job. It was a hobby to trail run. But the race is 135 miles. They do it over a span of like 2 days. His finish time was 24 hours, 27 minutes. So 1 day, 27 minutes. He just finished this morning. He slept for like, or he slept for like an hour and 43 minutes. You can tell from the tracker. But like, whenever I talk to him, he's like, I just love it. Like he just can't wait to get out on that next trail or try
It
that.
might not even be the time. It might just be like, I want to do this because I love this and I'm going to commit to it.
And, but then you see the results, right? So it's like, he didn't just wake up yesterday and decide like, I'm going to run 135 miles. You know, it's like every time we see him, he's up in the morning, he's getting his trail runs in, you know, he's always thinking about like, what is this thing going to be?
Did you just suggest Homer's wife? Like just ran an ultra marathon? I didn't know that was like, she was a runner. So same thing. It was like, she was posted about that. It's like 50 miles down in Florida or something like that. I was like, what?
They just find the time to do like something that
Yeah.
they really enjoy. So it's like, oh, what is something that you really enjoy? Or how can work be, or, you know, that be something that you really enjoy and make that part of your lifestyle.
Well, I feel like dedication ends
That's
up
a good word.
being a devotion.
Yeah.
Real
Yep.
dedication can be
Absolutely. Like there has to be a,
beyond.
yep.
Like I can see how he's.
I mean, and like for me, I'm like, I can't even fathom doing that. Like, and yet maybe he didn't either when he first did. And he's like, I'm gonna do it, right? Like the human body can do it. All right. Who wants to share one of theirs?
Again, I mean, it's not a thing. It says what 3 things. I would just like to accomplish peace. Something simple as that, because my pets, I come from a lot of solving so much chaos. Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to accomplish peace.
I like that. I would dig in so much on that, and I'm like, right? Because that could mean so many different things, but I really like that. What else? Got
Financial independence.
financial independence. Eric, what you got over there?
I just thought a bunch of neat people were hanging out here, so I didn't. No, I've been thinking it through. I haven't got a concrete thing to offer right now. So apologies.
No, I think that's fair, right? Like part of this, when you look at this and you're like, I don't know. I don't know if I was supposed to get like deep in this class, right? But we're going to. When you wake up in the morning, right? And you're like, I don't really know what I want to accomplish today or why. That's a real tough spot. Right?
Weekend in the army that they have you make your bed. This is not, I was in the army, this is from a book, from like a.
I was like, I didn't know this about you. I was like, when was this part of your journey in life?
What it is, and so I'm always like, with my kids too, I'm like, get up, make your bed, because it sets yourself up for achievement throughout the rest of your day, because right away, you've already accomplished something.
Yeah, and it could be for like my youngest just brushing her teeth. Like we achieved something. I mean, and that's fair. Like I've heard that story too. It's like you make your bed, and Reese randomly made her bed 2 days ago, and I was like, you on this new grind? And she's like, no, I just had time. But like somewhere along the lines, that's been put in my mind that if you make your bed, it like sets you up for like the first success of the day, right? But I think that a lot of people go through life where you're like, I don't I don't really know. And that's okay too, to be in a place that I don't know, but in the moment, having like something that you're like, I want to accomplish makes the day a lot more meaningful, right? Even if it's like, today, I just want to accomplish peace. I think people think it has to be like, I want to do something grand and money oriented or adventure oriented. And it could be something is like today, I want to accomplish peace throughout the day. Right? Like that's the piece of it where like I've learned over time when I journal in the morning and I set myself up for these are the 3 things. Does anyone do the 5-minute journal?
I do that, and on my fridge, I have an affirmation board
Okay.
where I make my kids responsible for how they want to feel that day.
Okay.
No one can do it for you. Like, how do you want to be today? How do you want to show up? That's on you. And I help them with
like what you just said is that they're responsible
Yeah,
for
no
how they
kids-
feel that day.
my
How
kids
many of us, and yeah, how many of us show up each day and we're like, well, this is what happened to me today, so whatever.
they
And
blame
take
others.
zero responsibility for how we're feeling about it. We can be mad, we can be sad, we can be whatever, but you have to take responsibility for that, right?
And it's okay, and you should, because then you're human, right?
Yep. What else? Yesterday, as I was doing this, this is actually perfect. Maybe I was like randomly thinking about this because I was looking through the stuff. Part of, I think, as a parent, I want to accomplish being okay with who they become and letting it go, right? Like as a parent, it's hard for me where I'm like, I have a kid leaving and I am like panicking. Like I'm not even panicking for her because she's going to be awesome. I'm panicking for me. Like, what am I going to do? Right? Like I've had this child and it was kind of this aha moment for me as I'm like, it has nothing to do with me. This is what my job was, is to get her ready to go do her thing. So part of this right now, momentarily, if you were to ask me this question is like being okay with letting and teaching the kids how to fly, right? Like letting them be on their own is the one thing that I want to teach them and be able to say, hey, guess what? These are great kids because of the things opportunities I provided them and the things that I instilled in them. Anyone else want to share? Otherwise we'll move on. No one online? Okay. So we'll go through this quick, right? Oops. This is just kind of for all 6 of them, right? Like, what is your goal? A lot of people, I met with an agent yesterday, not in this market center, and I said, what's your goal? And this particular person was completely transparent and goes, I don't have one. And I don't even know where to start because I don't know what I want. Incredibly real. Right? In many ways. And you can't ask the other questions until you're there, but yet we do, right? We still ask, how are you doing in your goal? And someone will lie and say, oh, I'm doing okay. They didn't have a goal in the first place, but they don't know what else to say. So you got to start at the bottom, right? Like, what's your goal? Then you've got to see how you're doing with it. And then add in the actual emotion. A lot of us put the emotion in first, where we're like, oh, I'm feeling really good on this. Yeah, no, we're busy. I'm good. Guess what? You're probably, or maybe you aren't, right? Because you're not actually tracking the results. And then what will the future look like if you don't achieve your goal? And I think that's a lot of times what we don't think about is, will I be the same? You know, the quote of, if you don't change things, things don't change. Sounds weird, but it's absolutely true, right? Okay, so we're gonna do some fun. I mean, this is, you have to participate a little bit. So this is the definition that they've put in here, right? You don't have to agree with it or not. We've obviously talked about this a little bit. The possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of you. You know, it was interesting when I asked everybody that, right? Maybe I set you up. But what were we actually talking about in mastery in the last 5 minutes? We were comparing ourselves, right, to somebody else. Hence why I kind of set you up. I think this goes along with what you were saying too, is the journey of mastery is yourself. How do you keep getting better yourself? And I would even challenge you, Candy, when you're like, I kind of dabble in a lot of different things. That could be part of that journey, right? Like maybe you're a person that wants to have different things to be like, hey, this weekend I can go do that. Like it's all different, right? Like I think that's all a perspective. Yet, when you have those, right, what are your goals with it? Me, if I want to do salsa dancing, I don't want to become a champion salsa dancer. My goal is to have fun. And if I go somewhere, I could have a song come on and do the basic salsa dance. I don't know, example, right? That would be the goal of that. It's not to be the best at it. And I could probably teach someone a little bit of it. Right? Number 2, know your strengths and weaknesses. How many of us have strengths that we know about? How many of us don't work in our strengths? It's really hard sometimes as a person to be like, these are my strengths. If I was to tell you to write down your strengths right now, I guarantee you, most of you would be like, ah, I got 2. When in reality, you probably have 15 to 20, right? And then I like, tell me some of your weaknesses. And that list, I'm telling you, you will write the same thing 85 times because you're like, oh, this is my weakness. And sometimes I'm like, call it an opportunity. Is it really a weakness or is it an opportunity, right? Like maybe you're not great at that, or for me, it's patience. I am not a patient person. Shouldn't say that. I'm working on becoming a patient person, right? And that's something I work on every single day. And yet my way that I can improve on that is not telling myself I'm not, right? I can be like, I'm a patient person. Candy is literally laughing because she's like, no, you're not. That is not helpful, Candy.
You've been working on it though.
You do support me on working on it. You know, and know how you work with both your strengths and your weaknesses to reach your goal, right? When you do this piece of it, right, you will discover so much about yourself. And it's really tough to take a look in the mirror sometimes and be like, who am I? To take the mask off. And it's really hard to admit that to other people once you do discover it. Who's been in that before? Who in here has kids or brothers or sisters? Who's really good at showing you all of your weaknesses and who you are that you don't want anyone else to see? Kids and siblings. Okay. I'm going to tell you, they pick them out as if it was like the largest thing in the world, and they will just tell you all about them. And then they'll tell each other about them. I never had siblings, so it's been a really fun world for me to live in, as like sisters tell each other how awful they are in different ways, that they pick their weaknesses. And I'm like, this is incredibly odd. Because I would never come in and be like, hey, Lydia, blah, 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 right? Like that's not how we work as a society. And I ask people, I'm like, do siblings do? Oh, they're like, oh, that's normal. That's not normal. Whoever made this normal? Like, oh, that's normal that siblings do that. That is not normal. Right? And my kids are like, Mom, just stop. It's normal. No, it's not. Whatever your normal is, this is not normal.
I think I used to tell my sister I don't have to be strong in that because she is, and we always hang out. So, or like if she would pick on something about me and be like, that's okay because you do that, so I don't have to. Like, so I think that playing to your strengths, like, oh, find that other person that fills that piece, and your kids probably do that, right?
Yeah.
The one is picking on the one for not being strong in something like them. They don't have to be, because that's why they have the other sister, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's, we also do that, I think, with friends, with spouses, with, you know, our work, right? Is you find people usually that do the things you either don't want to do or you're not good at. Would we agree with that? Like, we find that, like, it's a natural thing. We know what they are, but we don't verbalize them a lot. Moving on with this, you know, I think that a huge piece is it's a journey. It's not this one event, right? It's not this one piece of like, hey, I got there. Because to be completely honest, unlike your GPS, the destination changes as you change. Right? It's not this one infinite place. Because as the journey goes on, I know what I've wanted or what my goal is has changed each time. And it sometimes can change within the journey to that particular destination. And you truly have to enjoy that piece of it. Like, it's fun. Like, that's a fun place to be, is on the journey. The ups and the downs, and then you look back and you learn things from it. It's fun. All right, so I don't know if we're gonna watch that video. So we're gonna go into the one goal, and one goal right now that you want to achieve in the next 12 months. Just let's put a time frame on it. It can be personal, it can be professional, it can be, I want, you know, 2 hours of peace a day. It doesn't have to be this huge goal, but write one goal down right now, and we're gonna do this exercise with it. Just to work through it so we can kind of see what it looks like. Is that fair? Okay, I'll give you about 90 seconds to write your goal down. Do you want to do the next part of this in partners, or can we just have open discussion on our strengths and weaknesses as a group? I mean, it's a smaller group. Are you guys open to that? Do you feel comfortable with that? Okay. So list 3 obstacles that you think might hinder this achievement. About 20 seconds, then we'll do the other ones kind of. You can talk about them and then write them down as you think of them. All right. Are we all comfortable sharing our goal? Yes? No? If you're not, just say no. There's no judgment on it. Okay, who wants to start? Do you want to start?
Sure. My goal is to sell my old house. And three things, or three that might make it.
Three obstacles that might hinder that.
Process of how to do it. I just got the photos. I just have to learn how to
Yeah.
put it in MLS. So
Yeah.
learning process, time, like my available time to be involved in it. And the third is market interest, like unload it in a month.
Okay, perfect. Who's next? And then we'll come back to some of your strength, like we'll kind of go through each one. Who's next?
Before transaction. Obstacles would be commitment level, time on task, and
Okay. Okay.
Help.
First of all, can we say this? She was like this, like twice, like, should I share? As she like peeks around me. So as she goes, my own self-doubt.
Laziness and time constraints, but they're soccer.
I love that.
That's right. I had a hard time thinking about just the year. A big goal of mine is to have 50 states in 50 years, and no, I'm getting down to the wire. So I have 15 states left, and
I mean, that's number one. Right now, you know how many states you have that you have to, you know.
so time, money, and then just myself. Like, there's so many other, like, you know, like, do I really want this? Because there's so many other cool places to go. You know, I thought I'd be like way ahead of where I am right now.
Okay, all
So,
fair.
mhm.
Okay. No, you,
You're looking at Eric.
he was like, I didn't actually do it, so I have to do it.
Um, we want to move next year, so this year we just want to get our house ready to sell, so time, money, and then like making decisions / decision fatigue.
Love it.
All sharing? I
Yeah.
thought we were skipping around here.
Sorry, we skipped right to you after all of it.
There's hands up online or, one of the things I wanted to do, business wise is just build out the business. So I work with a lot of partnerships on that, so I want to build up my own reliant part of my business on that. So that's kind of one of the goals for this year.
Awesome. And what are some of the things that would, hinder the obstacles?
Just time management. If you get busy with one aspect of it, you can't manage that one. The dismissal or the self-negativity of like, you can't do that part or whatever, you get in your own head, and then the ability and / having the people to delegate the things that make you busy on that. So those are
Awesome. Awesome. Did I see someone on?
Yep. Their goal is 6 closings this year. Obstacles, not being able to dedicate 100% of my time, limited network reach as I'm still growing my network, and competition.
Awesome. Okay, so it took up the entire time. We got about 4 minutes. I want to leave you with on your own, truly to think of we've got the 3 obstacles that are going to potentially come in the way. And those are the first 3 that came to your mind. Most likely, those will be the 3 that will hinder it, right? And what I heard from most people is some of them are under your control. Very few of them were out of your control, which is so pertinent to what we just, the whole self-mastery portion of it, right? So I know when I say, hey, here's homework, everyone's like, I'm not in school anymore. Maybe we call it an exercise to get you to the goal. I don't know what words you want to call it. Bonus work, fun, not sure. But take those 3 obstacles and really think about the strengths that you have to overcome those obstacles, right? And then be super realistic. And what are some of the weaknesses? Right? Because there's going to be weaknesses in some of the mindset pieces that the weaknesses will take over, right? And you're going to have to be very, very conscious of what choices you're making to keep moving forward to get to the goal. I don't care how big or how small any goal is. When you're on the journey of self-mastery, every choice matters. Good or bad, every choice matters. Because then the next choice matters. People are going to make choices that didn't get you to the goal, but the next choice you make is going to be even more important. This morning you woke up and it was like you had probably 15 choices from the moment that you got out of your alarm went off to you getting out of bed. Number 1, do I hit snooze? Number 2, do I not hit snooze at all and just sleep in? How long am I going to lay here? What are my thoughts going through my brain? Everything in your day is a choice, right? Choose wisely, right, to get to self-mastery. And I would highly encourage, if this is something that you're like, wow, this is a lot. And if I was to say where I'm at in my own journey, take a reflection on that. No matter where you are, it's a starting point, right? It doesn't matter where you're at. All I would say is just watch so that it doesn't go backwards. What questions do we have? Comments, ahas?
Growth, I think, is not linear either.
Oh, no,
People are like, it's like, no, it's okay to like.
no, and you're gonna see that even in the business sense of E2P, right? You grow and then you kind of have to step back a little bit to completely go through. And I think internally and personally, it's the same thing. Right? Because you get to a certain point and then you got to reflect and go internal again because we get kind of automatic. Things are going great, and something happens and it can bring you back real fast. What else? Did you at least get one piece of information that's gonna help you in the next week, month, 3 months? Anyone from Zoom have any questions, comments? All right, so next month we'll do the 80-20 principle. And I'd love to just hear from you kind of where you're at even in the self-mastery journey. There's a ton of great books. And if you don't journal and you're like, I'm not a journaling type, try the gratitude journal on Amazon is actually the exact same as the 5-minute journal, and it's like $15 cheaper, just FYI. But they ask the same questions. There's usually a quote, right? 3 things you're grateful for, 3 things that are going to make the day great, and then you can write an affirmation. And then at night, you reflect on it again, and it's like, I usually am like, did those 3 things happen? What'd you learn today? I don't remember what the other one is, but there's like 3 things that are part of that too. And it sits just right next to my bed. So my choice is, hey, am I going to journal on this before I wake up? And am I going to journal before I go to bed? And it's not really even journaling. It's really a reflection of your day. So if it's something that you haven't done, and again, the gratitude journal, just look at it when you're on Amazon. I'm pretty sure they're the exact same 3 questions as a 5-minute journal, and you'll save some money. All right, go have an awesome day. You're welcome.